On the anniversary of one of the most powerful Marian apparitions in history, Cardinal Raymond Burke stood in quiet defiance. The church was half empty, but the silence around him was not empty silence. It felt heavy, like the kind that surrounds a message that many wish to ignore. During the memorial mass of July 13th at Fatima, Cardinal Burke did not give a typical homily. He gave a warning that echoed through the sanctuary like thunder, a warning that made the walls feel closer, the candles burn hotter, and the air feel heavier. Cardinal Burke, dressed in his red vestments, looked out at the few gathered and said what few others would dare to say. He spoke of betrayal, of abandonment, of a church that no longer walks with Christ, but drifts further away by the day. The church, he said, is experiencing a practical apostasy, not a hidden one, not a whisper in the dark, but a real, public turning away from the heart of Christ. His words weren't wrapped in politeness, they were precise, sharp. He spoke of violence. He spoke of lies. He spoke of death that grows when truth is ignored. No one else stood with him. No bishop of influence, no cardinal of power, only Cardinal Burke, an elderly man once at the center of Vatican authority, now standing nearly alone. And yet, in that moment, he carried a weight heavier than gold. He spoke to the silence of a church that had forgotten how to speak clearly. He pointed to a message that had been ignored for more than 100 years, the message of Our Lady of Fatima. He reminded those present and, maybe more importantly, those who chose not to be there, that Fatima is not a sweet story told to comfort grandmothers. It is a warning, a divine message wrapped in light and sorrow, a call to repentance, to prayer, and to truth. And this message, according to Cardinal Burke, has been hidden, silenced, softened, betrayed. His voice trembled not with weakness but with fire. He accused leaders within the church, bishops, priests, religious and lay people, of living lives that do not match their words. He said they have bowed to the culture of confusion, embraced a false mercy, and turned tolerance into a mask that hides rebellion. They preach love but forget truth. They speak of peace but allow poison to remain. And then he pointed again to Fatima, not the simplified version many remember, but the full truth. The truth that involves warnings of hell, of war, of persecution, of a church under attack from within. Cardinal Burke's voice grew firmer when he said that these messages are not outdated or irrelevant. They are now more urgent than ever. Many who were there said they felt chills. Some wept, others stayed still as if frozen by the gravity of his words. But outside that sanctuary, most of the world didn't even notice, and within the church, few dared to comment. His words went largely unanswered. That silence was its own message. Burke had stood alone, but it didn't end there. Those familiar with Cardinal Burke's past knew what else he was pointing to. He did not mention it directly, but his long history made it clear. He was pointing again to the mystery of the third secret of Fatima, the part that, to this day, many believe has not been fully revealed. The Vatican says the secret was released. In 2000 they published a vision of a pope walking through ruins, falling under gunfire alongside bishops and faithful. It was dark, yes, but Rome said it was symbolic, a vision already fulfilled in the attack on Pope John Paul II. Still, doubts have never died. Many theologians, bishops, and even close friends of Cardinal Ratzinger who published the secret say that something was missing, a page left out, a truth too dangerous to print. Father Ingo Dollinger, a friend of Ratzinger, said that Ratzinger himself told him that the full secret was not released. He said the missing part spoke directly of a bad council and a bad mass, words that hint at deep problems within the church itself, not just attacks from the outside. The Vatican denied it. They said nothing was hidden. But many do not believe that, and Cardinal Burke's consistent focus on Fatima suggests he agrees. His presence at that shrine, on that day, with those words, sent a clear signal: the church cannot keep hiding. The truth must come out. But even deeper than the third secret is the question of the consecration of Russia. This was Our Lady's request. She asked that the Pope, in union with all the bishops of the world, consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart. In return, she promised conversion, she promised peace. But has that consecration ever truly happened? Popes have made similar acts over the years. Pope Pius XII consecrated the world. John Paul II prayed in 1984, but did not mention Russia directly. Pope Francis, in 2022, included both Russia and Ukraine in a consecration, but many said it still did not match the request. The language was soft, the bishops were not clearly united, and the purpose was never announced as fulfilling Fatima's demand. Cardinal Burke has been clear. He believes the consecration has not been done as Our Lady asked. He says it still needs to be done directly, clearly, with the Pope and all the bishops together, naming Russia, trusting the promise. He speaks with sorrow, but also with urgency, because the peace that was promised is still far away, and the world continues to suffer. Now the question rises again: will Pope Leo XIV be the one to fulfill the request fully, or will his papacy follow the same pattern: partial gestures, vague language, and unfinished missions? The faithful wait. Some pray, others doubt, but the window is closing. And Burke, knows it. In that moment at Fatima, the question wasn't just about old messages or secret texts. It was about now, about whether the Church will face the truth, whether it will have the courage to name sin again, whether it will turn its face back to Christ and Mary, and away from the shadows that have spread through its holes. Cardinal Burke said something else that stayed with people. He said apostasy isn't always loud. It's not always a public heresy. Sometimes it's a quiet betrayal, a gentle drifting, a priest who no longer believes in what he preaches, a bishop who compromises to avoid conflict, a layperson who loves comfort more than the cross. It's not always denial. Sometimes it's just silence. And that silence, Burke said, is killing the soul of the Church. His words hurt, but they were meant to heal. Because truth, when spoken with love, does not crush, it saves. It opens the way back. And that was Burke's deeper call, not to anger, not to despair, but to return. To remember Fatima not as a distant myth, but as a mirror for today. He reminded everyone of the tears of Our Lady, of her sorrow at seeing so many souls lost, of her plea for prayer, for penance, for the rosary. These were not options. They were lifelines. He urged the faithful to pick them up again, to make the first Saturdays a habit, to go to confession, to kneel before the Blessed Sacrament, to stop waiting for bishops to act and start living the message themselves. At that moment, his voice softened. He said that the Immaculate Heart of Mary still burns with love, that her promise still stands, that no matter how far the Church drifts, heaven is ready to help if we listen. He ended his homily with a challenge. Not a political statement, not a protest, but a simple call to live like the message matters, to stop treating Fatima like a children's story and start treating it like what it really is, a warning wrapped in mercy. When the Mass ended, the sanctuary emptied slowly. Some left quietly, others stayed behind, kneeling in long prayer. Outside the church, the world went on as usual. But something had changed in those who listened. A sense of urgency, a sense of truth, and maybe, just maybe, a sense of hope. Because even when the Church seems silent, God is not. Even when bishops fall silent, heaven speaks. And even when one old cardinal stands alone, the message of Fatima still carries the weight of eternity. On the anniversary of one of the most powerful Marian apparitions in history, Cardinal Raymond Burke stood in quiet defiance. The church was half empty, but the silence around him was not empty silence. It felt heavy, like the kind that surrounds a message that many wish to ignore. During the memorial Mass of July 13th at Fatima, Cardinal Burke did not give a typical homily. He gave a warning that echoed through the sanctuary like thunder, a warning that made the walls feel closer, the candles burn hotter, and the air feel heavier. Cardinal Burke, dressed in his red vestments, looked out at the few gathered and said what few others would dare to say. He spoke of betrayal, of abandonment, of a church that no longer walks with Christ, but drifts further away by the day. The church, he said, is experiencing a practical apostasy, not a hidden one, not a whisper in the dark, but a real, public turn.